Hello everyone and welcome back to AAK Academy and TicketsBasket. Today we are in the session number 23. Before, we have implemented something in the services project, which is basically get a profile by user ID async. So that one basically because after the user gets into the system, creating an account using Azure Active Directory, we want to get the user profile data that's basically stored on our side to make sure what is the type of the account that created by this user. So here we have a table called user profile that contains somehow the same information that has been added in the Azure Active Directory, so we will store them here. So in this case, we are now going to fetch those data using the Microsoft Graph API, and we are going to manage the authorization on our level. So right now, we are going ahead and completing the create profile async. But before we do this, let's just make a very quick recap here for what we have implemented. As you can see, when the user gets into the system for the first time, he basically has to create a new account using the Azure Active Directory B2C. So that's create an account and allows him to get into the system, and right now he's authenticated. But for the first time, as you know, the user doesn't created or completed his profile by putting this information on our side. This is number one. And number two, we have to define what's the type of this account. Is it an organizer or is it a user? Basically, as we have talked about at the beginning of this course, that the authorization part of this project we're going to be implemented from our side. So Active Directory will be responsible for the authentication process, and for the authorization process we will have to create two policies, one for the organizer and one for the users, and this is going to be implemented from our side. So this part is already implemented, and for the second part, this is what we are going to do right now. After the user created the account and get into the system, we will call the get profile async. Then we will check if there is a profile or no, and for the first time, of course, it's going to be empty or null. So in this case, the user should complete their profile by uploading a picture and choose account type. Maybe in your scenario, if you want to extend and do something else, like you can ask the user if he is an organizer to enter more information about the business. Like, I don't know, maybe you are requesting some documents or you want to get more about the address or whatever, but we are going to keep it simple by just uploading a picture and choose an account type. So let's go back to Visual Studio right now and get started with that. The first step to do this is, as you know, we have to go to the shared project and requests here. I'll right click, add, and we have to create a new class in the requests folder because this data transfer object is going to be used just for transferring data from the client to the server that's going to contain the uploaded image and the type of the user. So basically, I'm going to call this profile request. Create a profile request, let's hit add. And this one will contain only two properties. The first one is of type Boolean, let's call it isOrganizer. And the second one will be the picture fetched from the form of the HTTP request, and it's going to be of type iForm file that represents a binary file fetched from the form, the HTTP form. When you are posting something using Postman, you can choose the body, the type of the body, the row, or you choose JSON or whatever, or you can choose a form. So uploading a file should be from a form, and I will call it profile picture. So here we need to install a package, Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.HTTP.Features. Let's just hit find and install the latest version. Okay, great. So we have it right now. In case you are asking the user for other properties on the creation, so you can add them here. Okay, like the address or whatever. So this is great. Right now we have the data transfer object created. We can go back to the services and create the method that's going to implement that. But basically, what is this process going to do? We are going to fetch the data of the user from the access token, because you know the access token contains the claim that had the country, the first name, the last name, and whatever, and the email as well. And then we are going to put that in our database and mark this as organizer or normal user. So let's do that. First, let's create the method in the parent class. It's going to be user profile detail, create profile async, and it will take create profile request. Like that, call it the model. So this is great. And right now, let's create the implementation here. If you are wondering why the interface and the class in the same file, so this is basically we are going to move them after we are done from this, but for the training purpose, this is going to be just like easier to see at the top and the bottom, but we will move them into a separated files when we are done. So we have this method, but as I've said, what is the first thing that this method is going to do is basically to get the claims of the access token. How we are going to get the claims? If you remember, here we have implemented this already called identity options. If you go for it, we will see that it had the user ID, and we say then there is other identity properties like related to the time zone of the user and other stuff. But right now, we need somehow all the claims. So we can do something by basically, instead of passing only the user ID, we can pass the full user object and put it here, and then this user ID will refer to just the name identifier claim in that user object. So let's close this and go back to the API project, extensions, service extensions, where here we configure all the services and the options. And here we have this function called configure identity options. So what we can do is basically, because we have access to the HTTP context accessor, then we have access for the user object here. And we are filling this only in case this is an authenticated request. So instead of setting the user ID, what I'm gonna do is I'll go for this here and I will add public. It's of type user principal. Sorry, it's a claims principal. Sorry for that. Claims principal. Okay, let's add. Great, I'll call it the user. So, and this one, we're not going to set this one and this one as the same time. What we are going to do is to make it a read-only property, and it will refer for if the user is not null dot claims, or yeah, the user is not going to be null, but the claims, or find first, yeah, find first. And here we pass the type of the claim types dot name identifier. In case it's not null, get the value of it. So this is great. Right now we can have access to this one directly, the user ID, which is somehow the most important one that we're going to use across the system. And here we have the user, so all the claims are available for us right now in all the services here. So what we can do, instead of setting this one, it's read-only right now, we can say identity options equals context.user, just like this. And this one is somehow useless, dot user, just like this. And we will come to other properties later like that, time zone and other things. So we will say this and this as well. And right now, let's first get the data of the user. So we will type identity dot user. So in this case, right now we have all the stuff. But how we are going to see the claims? What are the claims that are basically existing in the access token? If you remember from the setting up the Azure Active Directory B2C, we have choose a set of attributes that's going to be exists in the access token. So how we can see that? Let's for now type like this through new not implemented exception. And let's run the project, because if you remember in the weather forecast page, we have already printed the access token that's coming after the user logs in. So let's see what this access token, what is the claim that basically this access token holds. Okay, so this is the client-side project. If I click on Fiji data, it will ask me to log in, and basically that makes sense because this one is protected. Okay. Okay, great. Cool, so this is the access token. I'm printing it here like it's somehow not a good approach, but anyway. So to see what we have, we can decode this token using this little Microsoft tool, which is JWT.ms or JSONWebTokens.ms. Let's pass the token here, and here we go. The token has been decoded. This is the part of the signature, and the middle part, this one, the blue one, contains the payload, which is basically the claims. And as you can see, we have many claims. And what we are interested in is basically the user data, like the city, the country, name, given name, family name, emails. And yeah, basically those what we want to have access to. So let's fetch this data. But if you notice here that emails contains multiple emails, not only one. So this is an array. We have to pay attention for this one. Okay. So right now, I'm going first to fetch the city. Type city equals identity dot user. User, we already created that. Dot claims. Dot find first, and what was city. Dot value. Then let's make this one var better. Country equals user dot find first. Country var first name was user dot find first. Is it like this? It's given name. Family name. And here we have the email. Okay, for the email, as you have seen, it's basically an array. So it's called emails. Emails as JSON, I would call it like that. User.find first. Emails. Dot value. Let me remove here first and because we are running the application, I'm just writing the code. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, so this one emails at JSON. What also we have is just the full name. Okay, sorry, we have stopped the application. But okay, for now, let's set full name equals user dot find first. I think it's called name. Dot value. Now let's get the email because this one is an array of string, so we have to get just the first one. Let's use the JSON serializer var first email. So this first name here, it's going to be JSON convert. Okay, we have instance of the JSON existing here, and we will type deserialize object, serialize it to array of string, the emails as JSON, and bring out the first one, first or default. Let's add system.link, and that's great. Right now we have all the properties of the user, and here we have the profile picture, and we have the is organizer existing in the model. Now for the profile picture, let's add a to-do comment, upload the picture to Azure storage, Azure Blob storage. So this is what we are going to do after finishing the user profile service. We are going to create the Azure Blob storage and the Azure function to create thumbnail for those pictures. But for now, let's complete with other things. Now let's create the user object. I'll type var user equals a new user profile detail. And here, let's set country. Not user profile detail, it's user profile. So country equal the country, city, created on equals datetime.utc now. As I've said before, like all the dates should be stored in the UTC time zone. First name equal the first name, and last name equal the last name. We have ID equals to UID dot new to string, and we have the user ID equals to identity. This user ID that comes from Active Directory, and is organizer equals to model dot is organizer, and here string profile picture URL equals to Let's set it unknown just for now. Okay. So profile picture equals profile picture URL. You will bring that value from the Azure storage. So yeah, we already have users. Let's call this new user. You can click Ctrl+Shift+U to basically make it capital or small letter. Okay, that's great. Now we have created this user object. What we are going to do, let's add it to the database. Await unit of work dot user profiles dot create async new user, just like that. And what we are going to do is to call unit of work dot commit changes async. So now we have saved that, and at the end we will call the return success, which is basically this function that we have created in a session when we created the user profile, get user profile that's basically existing here. Let's make a quick recap for that. So as you can see, this one returns the operation response with a message and this record object, and the error as well that returns set this one as a false and this one for true. So we are going to type success, user profile created successfully. And here we have the record, which is basically the new user. And we have created already a function called toUserProfileDetail. And this one will translate this object from user profile in the database into a data transfer object, user detail. And it's existing in the models project. I'm just doing this as a recap. We already implemented that in previous sessions. So mappers, we have done this. And we have said like we are going to use also AutoMapper. So in this case, you are going to see both scenarios and you just follow with the one that suits for your needs and the one that you prefer. But for me, I prefer creating the extension methods and do this mapping from the model classes into, or the business model classes into data transfer objects. So this is the service. We still have some work to do on this, but let's come back to this when we create the Azure Storage service. Right now, let's go to the controllers of the API. I'll go to this controller, user profiles, and here I'm going to create a post request. Async task, action result. This one post, and it will receive, but from form. It's not going to be from the body because there's going to be a file. It's going to receive a create profile request model, just like that. And because in the previous session we have implemented the Swagger, so right now we have to add some metadata to this endpoint. So in this case, Swagger is going to show the right documentation about this endpoint. But let's first set the implementation. So equals to user profile service dot create a profile async. Let's add the model object. And here we just check if result.isSuccess, then return OK with the result. Other than that, return bad request with the result. Okay, for now, it's not going to be there any bad request, like if you go check the implementation. But in the near future, we are going to check that if this user is already exists. We need to check this first. And we need to check if there is any error in the picture. Like he tries to upload, for example, a PDF or something. We can do this client side and also server side. And right now we'll add some validations that going to check. So this one is done, but let's add some metadata about that. It's called produces response type. We can use this property. So here we type the status code 200 and type of, what is the type of the response? It's operation response and of type user profile detail. So this is what it's going to return in case success, and in case it failed, it's going to return the same, but the status code will be 400. Let's apply this for this one as well. Okay, so this one, as you can see, it returns okay. And operation response of type user profile detail, or it returns not found. So not found doesn't have a type. It's empty. So 404. So right now the Swagger documentation has more meaningful meaning, and the get or the post should be authorized as we have said. So let's click start, and I will go to this one here. I'm going to put a breakpoint just to follow what's going on. Okay, great. So we need to be able to get the token. Let's click on this one. Okay, great. Let me copy this. And I'll go to the postman. And here we have to create a new request. Let's create a post one. Now for the authorization, I'll choose barrier token. Save this token here. Maybe there is some empty spaces, okay. And let's bring the URL of the API, which is this one. Let's paste that here, /API, okay, I forget the name of the controller, user profiles, okay. And for the body, it's going to be forum data, because here you can choose text or file. Now, as we have said, the picture does not exist, so the only one that we want to send is organizer. Let's set it to true here. We can set it as 1 or 0. So this is it. Let's try to click send. And okay, here we get an error that couldn't load file or assembly, newtonsoft.json. Okay, so let's try to install that for the projects. And here if we check the packages, okay, let's install it in this project. And it's all with the first library here. I think it's going to be the first one to reach the 1 billion install. Wow, this means how many .NET developer out there that writing .NET code. So this is interesting. And let's go to the services and have a look at the packages. I don't think we have any packages here yet. So let's install it here as well. I think we have references for it for one of other projects that has. This is why it's existing here. But okay, now let's try again. Okay, let's hit send. Okay, cool. So here our endpoint has been hit by Visual Studio. If we check the model parameter, okay, the is organizer is true, profile picture is null, which is basically makes sense. Let's see right now how the those values will be fetched, if they will be fetched successfully or no. So we get the city, we get the country. Okay, for the first name, oh, we just got an error. Let's see the claims available here. So we have 22 claims, and we have the name, but oh yeah, okay, sorry for that, but basically, okay, because yeah, those are just using the claims, and we have to see the name. Okay, for the given name and for the family name, they are using the one defined in the claims, in the claim types, but JWT.ms just shows the final part of this, because as you can see, the schema is this full one. So given name, okay, and for the family name, I think it's called family name or surname. Okay, interesting. I think this one we need to copy that from the name, because it's not exists here. And for the email, what I have noticed that emails was only one value. I don't know why JWT is just doing this. So let's do that again. Okay, hit send. Great, let me check. Okay, all the claims again. Claims, public result view. Now we have for the last name, yeah, they are using the surname, which is basically makes sense. So let's complete. I'm just wondering about the email.values. I don't think it's going to be an array, but let's see. Yeah, it's only one email, so we can ignore this line. I'm going to rename this one to email. Okay, great. So, sorry, we need to have the pointer. We got an exception. Yeah, that's fine. Let's try to send that again. So now let's remove this. Say email. This one is email. So this is great. Let's see right now. Okay, great. So we have all the values. We have fetched them successfully. Now try to add this. Okay, here we go. We got the result as true, a success. So this means that the profile has been created successfully. And to make sure that this one is working fine, let's duplicate this tab and let's make it a GET request and just try to send the request from the same user. And here we go. We will get that profile retrieved successfully, and this is the endpoint that we have created before. And as you can see, we have all the data available for us. Now, for the next session, what we have to implement, we have to go with Azure Storage, and we have to implement the utility. So it's going to calculate the difference between 2 days, and it's going to return it like 1 minute ago, 2 hours ago, 1 month ago, and like this. So yeah, for the next session, we'll go with this one. Then we will move to Azure Storage and implement the blob storage, then the Azure function, so we can create the thumbnails for the pictures in an automated way. So until the moment, I hope you enjoyed the session and got the benefits. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button if you enjoyed that, and see you in the next video.